Hello, everybody. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci of CFL Talk. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download the app, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs. 2016 forward. Now joining me as usual, David Morassutti. David, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. Yes. Quite the weekend of football.
It was a jam-packed weekend of football.
It was awesome. But before we talk about the football games, I want to talk about an article written by a guy that we both know, a guy that we know for a fact spent a lot of time around the Toronto Argonauts and the Canadian Football League. His name is Sean Fitzgerald, and he's writing for The Athletic. And he wrote a story about the Toronto Argonauts. And as you can see there, how do you fix the Toronto Argonauts? Um, I have to say, I've not read an article about this subject that covered a lot of time and territory. David, he did a great job of really filling in the history of the Toronto Argonauts and the Canadian Football League, and unfortunately highlighting some of the issues and some of the travails that this franchise has been through, is going through, and giving us some foresight into maybe, unfortunately, what the future holds for this franchise in this league.
Yeah, and and Sean's asking the multi-million-dollar question that every owner since the early 90s has been trying to figure out with this team.
Yeah, Cinnamon and Sokolowski. Yep, going back to them.
Going like and they were interviewed in this article.
They were.
This is where I have to always preface it with CFL fans that Sean Fitzgerald is not like other reporters when it comes to these sort of stories because he goes in depth. He doesn't just point out what the issues are. He digs deep into figure out, okay, what has been done in the past? And this is what the story does well. What has been done in the past to try to figure out what has been done in the past? Because it's always funny because we hear some say, "Oh, you got to throw some serious money at it to try to really promote the team." Well, what are you throwing money towards, right? What are you trying to accomplish with these investments? That's what I think gets lost a little bit in all of this, and this is where I think Sean does a really good job of getting the opinions from people who have been there and who have been a part of kind of the struggles that this team has gone through.
Yeah, he even talks to the Argo Queen, Lori Bursey. I consider her a friend. She's been an Argo season ticket holder for something like 40 years. She has traveled with the Argos. She has followed the Argos loyally. Just one person. She's an example of many. There are many like her, and he chose to speak to her because up until a few years ago, she was very central to what was going on with the Argos, and she was the queen of the Toronto Argonauts. And she was there for a lot of the stuff, as many other people were, as you're referring to. The people are under the misconception that the Toronto Argonauts, as a franchise, have done nothing to promote the team. This article reminds us of some of the things that the Argos have done, even to the point where they they went to an adult club to get some women to do some dancing, and and that I'm laughing because that spoke to so much to the desperation, where they've tried some stuff, maybe not the right stuff, obviously. They've tried a bunch of things. They've tried bringing in big name players that had names. So many things have been tried with the Toronto Argonauts, and I think Sean points out to the biggest problem the Toronto Argonauts originally had, and I think continue to have, that people don't understand. Up until the Toronto Blue Jays came here, the Argos were actually having 40,000 people at their games.
Mm-hmm. Well, not only that, it's the type of people that were having to their games, right? I can speak to my father was a lifelong CFL fan. He was probably among the young crowd going to watch CFL games. He continued to watch CFL games, but guess what? I followed, but not many other people my age followed.
Yep.
There's a generation gap that the Argos continue to struggle with. And it's now, I think it's not just the Argos problem. I think it's the CFL's problem right now.
Yeah. And then when it's characterized by people like Richard Petty, when originally MLSC was asked to get involved and they decided not to, um, and I think the one that the point to be made that that people, I think, know, MLSC is a business. They invested $10 million on TFC, and that $10 million 25 times for that investment. It's 250 million right now that team is worth. So, that kind of investment return is one that no one expects on the purchase of the Toronto Argonauts.
Mm-hmm.
And and well, in this article, basically, they basically have to find somebody who's willing to underwrite the team, because this isn't a business proposition. This is what's sad is, and unfortunately, there's a lot of truth to it, that the Toronto Argonauts are a team that we all want to be around, but there's not enough of us to make it financially profitable. The best we can hope for is for it to be viable. I don't know. Am I overstating that fact?
Yeah, like you're not going to turn this team into what you just brought up with with Toronto FC, from a $10 million club to a $250 million club. The economics of the CFL just do not allow it. It just doesn't work that way. But what you can try to turn the Argonauts into is something that's, as you said, viable, which is from losing money to maybe making a small little profit, right?
Yeah.
That's really all I think. Really, what the Argonauts are trying to get to, but it's not easy because you're dealing with, and this is something unfortunately that a lot of people have to realize, is they're dealing with a reputation for a league that's been skewed in a certain direction and continues to be, and it likely won't change unless something big happens to make people see it otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Argos have a lot of friends. The mayor of Toronto used to be the commissioner of the Canadian Football League. There are a lot of people out there that, that honestly, and I say this with sincerity, love and respect the Toronto Argonauts and the history that is, literally maybe not burned on their soul, but you know, at least has cast a shadow over their soul. I find it, that this article is just, for me, it's like when I read it, it's a reset, and we forget because we're clouded in the past few years have been tough. The pandemic, even before the pandemic, have been really tough. And I guess I'll let you summarize, but my last thing I'm going to say is that this article is an article that, if you have any interest in understanding a little bit of the history of the Toronto Argonauts and you haven't had a chance to live through it, check out this article. If you have lived through it, this will be a reminder of what you've been through. So it's a really great article, and I more than enjoy the idea of supporting Sean Fitzgerald and this writer. He writes for The Athletic, because this is a guy who's writing from experience, not just research.
And I will say this too: the article title is much better than the other ones I've seen. Right? How do you fix the Toronto Argonauts versus, are the Argos fixable? Like
Yeah,
he's putting out the fact that, what, there is a possibility here, guys, that this is something that can be fixed.
yeah, and only time will tell. Only time will tell. That well, great article. Check it out. Um, you know, my friends are there. The Argo lifers. Um, they support the team. The group has always been diehard Argo supporters. Teams and fans from out of town know who they are, and sometimes they don't want to know who they are because they're tough on the visitors, and they sit just outside where the visitors come out. So that's the article, and let's move over to the games and hopefully something better to talk about. Now, fortunately for us, we get to talk about some good football before we go back to a little bit of Argo depression because they played on Sunday. Here we are talking about how do you fix the Argos.
And
You
people are
don't
just
play
like,
games
you
like
mean the team on the field?
you don't play games like they did on Sunday, Saturday. Sorry. Well, it was Sunday because it
By the time
started at
by
10.
the time it
By the
finished.
time it was finished, yeah. I am totally. Uh, we'll go with game one. We'll start with game one, and that was the Saskatchewan Roughriders visiting Montreal. And on the subject of fixing teams, we have an owner in Montreal has all the intention in the world to fix the team, and he's a very aggressively supportive owner, and that this game meant a lot to him, and he expected some big things from his team in back-to-back games against the Saskatchewan Roughriders. They came through and won 37-13. Um, they almost pulled it out in Saskatchewan when Harris came in and did a great job, and he did even a better job in this game. And you know, they won this game and they won it going away. And some might suggest, wow, Saskatchewan's not a pushover.
No, they're not. I said the week before that they were one of the better defenses in the CFL in terms of being able to stop the air attack, and that's quite a it's quite a statement from Trevor Harris, because there were some people who were doubting whether he can actually be a starter, like, and be productive. Right? We always talked about the Trevor Harris that could put up all the yards, but then when it came time to put up the points, it just wasn't there for him. It was this time.
Well, my favorite every week, I always like to look at, quarterbacks and, their TD to interception ratio. He had a TD, no interceptions. And with quarterbacks, we must remember today that a lot of times quarterbacks don't get credit for TDs if their backup runs in for a touchdown. So we keep that in mind. But what we do know is Cody Fajardo did not throw a touchdown pass and threw 2 interceptions. So, Harris showed that he can really play the game, and I think and even here, even myself, I have to take myself to task as well, that like many, I think it's important that quarterbacks not just be successful statistically, but they need to win. you know I've come to the realization that the Canadian Football League, not that they don't need more starters in the Canadian Football League, but what they really need when it comes to quarterbacks, they need stars, not starters. That doesn't mean they don't need starters. It's just we need some more stars because I think that's who sells the game.
Right. We need players that, when a tough play needs to be made, there's no doubt they're gonna make it. Right?
Yep. And
And
we saw a couple of those passes by Harris, and that's what you need because offense sells tickets, and this game offered us a total of 50 points, which is a nice amount of points that we sometimes seem to be lacking in Canadian Football League games. And not that there wasn't a great defense as well. This had everything. I mean, how did the game start?
yeah, I was gonna say
I loved it.
Chandler Worthy. The Argos decided they didn't have room for Chandler Worthy, have struggled mightily on special teams to really get anything going. What does he do? And he was a late addition to the Owls team because he was cut, and
And
he's
an
already got it.
injury required a replacement, and that he was just next man up.
And he made it. He made it count with a touchdown return, which is becoming pretty rare right now. Special teams is hard to get that production right now.
Yeah, he averaged about 20 yards on a return, 18.6. And he did what he needed to do, and as much as quarterbacks are important, field position in the Canadian Football League is so important. It's important mostly because you don't get 4 downs, you get 3 downs. So, getting down the field is a challenge, but Trevor Harris made it look fairly easy. He had a nice group of passes, a nice group of receivers that did well, and the running game was okay, but their defense, Montreal, was outstanding. They really did make Fajardo and the Riders look ordinary.
They really did. No, for sure. And that's not an easy task.
No way.
So it was very impressive on that front for sure.
So Fajardo threw 2 interceptions, as I said. He was 17 at 28, 60.7 his average. The running game was was half of what it was for Montreal, is 27 yards. I mean, we're not seeing the running game work in the Canadian Football League again, and I don't know what it takes to fix that, because David, what we hear from football experts all the time is you got to establish the run.
You do. No, you do. You need to be less predictable on offense, right?
Yeah,
Because defenses can continue to, have a bunch of guys in coverage and force the quarterback to throw the football. Well, if you have a running game that's going to make the field shorter and eat up those yards and really get, really in a lot of ways help your, offensive line a little bit. The defensive linemen prefer to push forward than to have to drop back. So I do think it's crucial when you think about, you have to make the defense guess a little bit.
yeah, absolutely. Williams looked fantastic for Saskatchewan. Best receiver on the day, and I'm getting more and more impressed with Schaefer Baker.
Yeah, he's someone that if you give him the opportunities, he will make plays. Sure, he didn't have 100 yards, but when the ball was thrown his way, he was catching it. Right, 8 of 10. He had the most targets. You brought up Duke Williams, who had 101 yards and a
Yep.
touchdown, but it was Schaefer Baker who was targeted one more time than Duke Williams, and he had twice as many receptions.
Yes, and he looked really good, and a guy that was a surprise is a Toronto kid, uh, Julian Grant.
Yes, he is. And this is what you need. This is what they talk about with the GTA. Southern Ontario kind of hot zone of players that can actually be good players, right? Not just, oh, this guy's from the GTA, we need to support him. No, no, no. He's a good player. That's why you support him.
Absolutely, originally from Saint FX. He's a fair sized kid, 6'2", 212 pounds, so he's not a little guy. Um, and the great thing about Canadian receivers, it seems more and more, is the plethora of them. There are so many now. There really are. There are a lot of receivers that are Canadian, and they're making a difference. And some of them are actually making a difference in the NFL as well. So there's a lot of talent in Canada when it comes to this position, and it was great to see him have a big day. I love that stuff. The other thing, I guess, as far as receivers are concerned, David, Did you see anybody that really impressed you? Is there somebody that you see on either of these two teams that give you a pause?
Uh, a, a
I'll
pop.
help you. How about Asher? I think Asher, if he could hold on to the ball.
Yeah, yeah, he's one. I think it's nice to see Tyson Philpott get
Yes,
a really long reception. Right, him and his brother were kind of the next wave of, again, CFL dynasty families.
absolutely. And having a little battle of their own, right?
Yep,
We get
no,
to
for
watch
sure,
that every weekend to see how each brother does.
exactly.
Yeah, I totally impressed. So, congratulations to the Montreal fans, their team, and Saskatchewan. You know they'll bounce back. 37-13 in Montreal. Great game for them. Awesome, awesome game. The Ticats went into Winnipeg. They haven't had much luck with against them the last couple of years. We keep saying it, but you can't help but say it. They lost back-to-back Grey Cups to Winnipeg. They must have been motivated when they went into this game. And you know, this is another one of those times where Dane Evans churned up a lot of yards, 237 of them, unfortunately, no TD to count, and two interceptions. Caleros, no TD to count, 302 yards, one interception. So neither of the starting quarterbacks were credited with a TD pass.
It's kind of the earmark of the CFL in a way,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's the part that I think is most scary. And like I said at the beginning of the program, if there's two guys that should go from being starters to stars and play like stars, these are two guys that could do it. One established in Zach Caleros, Dane Evans, another one that we've seen such skill, early on in his career. It just isn't this year. I don't know whether he has to break through the pressure of being the guy. I don't know if that's part of the problem.
Um, it's tough to say, really. I mean, it's something that that's the question for the coaching staff, really, right? They're the ones that have those conversations and really try to figure out for themselves. I even look at the scoring plays in this game, right?
Right.
Single, field goal, field goal, field goal, single.
Hmm.
Like, where are the touchdowns?
Yeah.
Touchdowns came, unfortunately, the one off the interception, which was taken by Willie Jefferson. Willie Jefferson had more touchdowns in this game.
Boy, does he make a difference on that team or what?
Yeah, I was gonna say he had more touchdowns in this game than the Hamilton Tiger Cats did.
Eh,
It's that's how good of a defense they can be, right? In the Winnipeg, they allow some yards, but they will not allow those touchdowns. When you get that opportunity to score 6 points, you better score those 6 points. That's what I
Yeah,
think Ottawa realized, and I think that's what Hamilton realized. And guess what? Toronto's got them next.
yeah,
They better find a way to put up 6 points and not settle for these 3 points each time.
yeah, yeah, it, that is a defensive line, and quarterbacks are not safe when they play Winnipeg, and part of the problem that Dane Evans has is, I threw out, maybe he's feeling a little pressure of being the guy. He was also feeling the pressure of two guys from each side of that defensive line from Winnipeg that were, he was under duress throughout the game. And Winnipeg does that to you. They take away your quarterback.
Mhm.
And that's why, uh, you know, Sean Thomas Erlington was important to get, you know, do better yardage wise. But this is another case of a starting running back out, and they've got a backup trying to do the starting running back work. Um, the same thing. Brady Oliveira had a little more success. The running game for Winnipeg was a little better, which is probably why they did better offensively by definition, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. It's really dumbfounding in a way. I think like this is. It's one of those storylines where you're just kind of shake your head and you just wonder like who can solve who has the answer. Like I clearly I right now I don't have it. I can't even really. I can give you an idea, but I would just be like I would just be guessing right now at this rate.
Well, what I would say, for Winnipeg, the answer for them is simply continue playing the way they can play. You know, every facet of their football team should play to their they every part of their game is good. So if they're having trouble with Caleros throwing touchdowns, they can do it a different way. They have that advantage. On the other hand, with Hamilton, they're trying to establish a quarterback as their starter. They're trying to recover their pass rush because their best pass rusher went to Toronto. Their receivers are look, Tim White has 78 yards, Stephen Dunbar, you know, you don't see the name Banks in there. You don't there's names you don't see there. So this is a Hamilton team that I will define it as rebuilding, David. I don't consider this is the team that they want to have next year when they're home to the Grey Cup again. I can see this being a kind of tooling year for them. Not saying they're not going to try to win the Grey Cup. I'm not saying they can't. I'm just saying that they've made some serious changes in the offseason, and to make up for those changes or work through those changes is going to take some time. The Ticat fans are going to have to be a little patient. Dane Evans is going to have to acquire some confidence and a better offensive line, because ultimately every quarterback is only as good as their offensive line. Now, quarterbacks can help their offensive line if they can, you know, get rid of the ball really quick, right? The quicker a quarterback gets rid of the ball, the easier it is for the offensive line. And that, again, we just said they're working in some new receivers. So, Dane Evans is in a situation where his patience and his loyalty to his teammates is clearly his strong point right now, that he has and he can have. So right now he's taking bullets for the team. And I love this kid. Dane Evans is one of the best talented quarterbacks in the Canadian Football League. We're just not getting a chance to see it right now. And patience will be what Hamilton will provide him. I'm sure of it.
Well, that's the thing, right? Tiger Cats fans have been through thinking their team was good enough, but then coming up short. So what you really would
That's
hope
going to
is
hurt.
getting a bit of a cleanse right now, where you're thinking, okay, the organization is going to do what it can to kind of change the formula, change something, so that we're not coming back to the same issue the following year. Well, when a team goes through a lot of changes, there's a lot of guys that have come and gone. It's going to take some time to get used for those changes to get in place, as you said, right? Dane Evans has never been a starting quarterback from start of the year to the end of the year.
Right.
He's always had, Jeremiah Mazzoli as that 1B sort of right behind him guy. And so that's a whole new challenge for him. And he's gotten, new guys to work with. You brought up the offensive line. A lot of Hamilton fans are very upset that felt like a neglected position in terms of something that they thought should have been done, but never really got properly handled. Well, unfortunately, to rebuild an offensive line, it doesn't happen overnight. It really takes time, because good offensive linemen, I think, other than quarterback, I think offensive linemen are one of the other positions that get a lot of money thrown their way, because there's not many really good ones out there.
Yeah, no kidding. There's a guy retired, Mike Riley. He retired because BC couldn't provide him with a decent offensive line. Now, having said that, we know what they did, so Hamilton can do it. The question becomes how quickly they can do it. And when you look at and the only reason I'm mentioning BC is because part of the reason why BC's having a good time right now. We'll get to their game, but I just want to help people understand, if they don't, that Hamilton is in the same position BC was a couple of years ago. They have a couple of important players that they don't have, offensive line.
Mhm.
quarterback with experience, right? And the receivers and all that stuff. BC may not have made the playoffs, but the last couple of years they built a defense that was incredible 2 years ago. And they started working on doing the offense and of course special teams. What we're seeing from them is a team that was built over the past 2 years. This is what Hamilton needs. Hamilton's going to have to go through that process where they're going to have to build a team. And they just don't have any one individual on that team that can throw them on their back and carry the team to victory. And by the way, it's football, so that's kind of hard.
Yeah, no, this is so true. I always think back to what the Argonauts did in 2017, right? They went from a team that was at the bottom of the CFL, brought in a new coach, new general manager. They said, "All right, we got a good quarterback here. Let's just make sure he's surrounded with what he needs to be successful." And it worked. But
Mhm.
that's Ricky Ray we're talking about. That's future Hall of Fame. Well, now
And
elect
James Wilder had the career year his
yeah,
first year.
right? So like we're talking about everything going your way in those moments. It takes time. It doesn't happen overnight, and sometimes things just play out a certain way, and it's you kind of have to kind of roll with it, right? Like okay, this doesn't really look like our year right now. I mean, look, it's 3 games of an 18
Yeah,
games.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a process.
It's a process. There's a lot of if you panic after 3 games, like you're not even you're like it's not even like you're a 1/6 of your schedule. 1/6 of your
Yeah.
schedule,
But
right?
you made the point perfectly that, when you bring up the Argonauts and them winning the championship and, you have to be fortunate to have whatever you decided to however you decided to build a team, the system that you decided for it to be successful. There's a bit of luck involved. And the proof is that team because it wasn't built for long-term good. It got lucky. It won at the right time. It was in the right situation in 2017. They won the Grey Cup. The next year, what happened? Then they did, none of the stuff that was working worked the next year. James Wilder, for example, and then of course the quarterback issue. It became a quarterback issue. So at the end of the day, Hamilton will be better. Right now, they just need some time to work in some key players because right now they don't have experienced key players. So it's not like with Winnipeg. Winnipeg, you know, is not like the Argos of 2017. This is the real deal. And this is who Hamilton played. They played a team that's the real deal. So this is another loss that Hamilton can have hung over them by a really good team. And that's the other thing we have to keep in mind. We're going to find out which teams are really, really good. And I don't think anybody's going to argue the point that Winnipeg's a good team, a really good team. So they won 26-12 in summary. Anything else you want to add before we move to the next game?
Um, Winnipeg is doing right now reminds me of what Calgary during those dominant years.
Yeah.
Sustainability. It's
Next man
it's
up.
just it continues to carry over, and that's if you're a CFL front office or management guy, you're kind of just like, but we thought if we move if we but they were able to keep as much of that together, right? And the front office are just trying to find a way to beat them. They think they have the formula, and then it's like, oh,
What
they just yeah, exactly. So I think it's going to be the team that beats Winnipeg this year is going to have almost either catch them on their worst performance ever or have they have their best performance ever. Because I
Absolutely.
just don't see how you can beat this team if you don't get a little bit of luck in your going your way right now.
Oh yeah, you have to have some luck, and luck. As much as you know, luck is what it is. I'll leave it at that. There has to be you make your own luck too. And when Hamilton decided to move on from certain players, and then they lost their former number one quarterback, and their running back that they were hoping would be their guy gets hurt, it's a lot of that's a lot of stuff to overcome. So, Cat fans, look, we do the Argos. I was part of an Argo fan group, still am, and so automatically I'm supposed to hate the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Well, that isn't true. I don't. I don't. I respect a lot of the Cat fans, and the organization is a great organization. And win or lose, right? The franchise is important to the Canadian Football League and to the Eastern Division, because right now the Eastern Division doesn't look very good, and that's of no interest to me because Uh, I'm a pro CFLer. I believe in the Canadian Football League, and I'm not here to make excuses for the Ticats, but I am offering my experienced opinion, and it's because I pay attention to what's going on. So I feel it's incumbent and important to me that I speak about the Hamilton Tiger Cats with some respect. Um, the inner Argo fan in me, of course, there's a little tiny little voice going there. This looks good on them. I'm not gonna lie. There's that little tiny voice, that little devil on my shoulder that goes, "Hey, do you like what's going on there?" Well, unfortunately, I got this Argo feeling that doesn't feel so good either. So I'm looking for some good news in the Eastern Division, and Montreal provided it this week. Hamilton, not so much. Winnipeg, the Dynamo, 26-12. I allow you to finish the subject on this game.
Yeah, no, I think if you're a Hamilton fan, it's kind of wait until maybe halfway through the season before you have any doubts about the team.
Well, the good news is that with the rest of the teams not playing so well, I mean, you can even still finish first. I mean, there's nobody that I've seen yet other than Montreal. And because Ottawa, I figured more from them, but they've had another tough battle starting on the road, blah, 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 and all that kind of stuff. First place is up for grabs in the East, and every playoff spot's up for grabs in the East. And if they can play well enough and not allow a Western team, if early scores indicate anything, they better be careful, or there's going to be a crossover this year, and only two Eastern teams will make the playoffs. So it's going to be an interesting season. I think for some it has started tough for some teams. Injuries have been a big factor. Establishing teams has been another factor. So um, when we talk about teams that are trying to rebuild their image, rebuild the confidence that the fans have in the team, I think one of the teams in the toughest position going into this season had to be the Edmonton Elks. And they went into Calgary, and they did pretty good. They started well, and Calgary pulled the we're coming back. They won 30-23, and that score was a fair indication, David, of the way the game was played and how close it was.
Yeah, but don't tell Chris Jones that because he's just gonna say, "Well, it still ended up as a loss on our record, unfortunately." But no,
I respect that.
you considering how the season started for them and how the last 2 weeks have gone for them, yeah,
Hmm.
I would say you see a group here that's no a bit better than what it was. What was talked about in the first week of the season. What was talked about in the first week of the season is not the same team. And it's funny because I talked to Enoch Mwamba about kind of, you know, the BC Lions and how their team you got to watch for because they can put up all these points. He says, well, yeah, but this is also Chris Jones taking a lot of gambles because that's the coach he is. And the team just didn't execute in a first game where you haven't really had a lot of time to simulate things in game. I could see why that is, and we could see why things are getting better for Edmonton. They're not there yet, but they're getting better.
And Calgary won this game. They made a comeback, and it wasn't handed to them.
No,
Bo Levi Mitchell made a couple of really incredible um, Bo Levi Mitchell passes, the kind of passes we haven't seen in recent memory, where he hasn't physically been able to do that. There were a couple tiny windows that he tossed in the corner in front of the end zone, by the goal line. I mean, that pass was incredible. He was on fire. He really was. He was. He looked fantastic. Uh, I talked about stars, not starters. Well, Bo Levi Mitchell has been a starter for the last little while because of injuries. He's looked like a star in this game. He really did look like a star. Even Nick Arbuckle early in the game looked like a star, and that's what we need. I say we need that in the Canadian Football League. One TD, one interception for Arbuckle, one TD, no interceptions for Mitchell. And the best thing a quarterback can do, and Mitchell did this, he's had some tough luck with, ball security. He's done a much better job, and it's showing up on the scoreboard.
No, it doesn't, right? But that talks to just how Calgary knows what it takes to win, right? That's a team right now. Sure, they got off to a bad start. Sure, they were down, but they know what they need to do to win. First off, play clean, right? You can be down, but you can come back if you don't make the mistakes. They had
Absolutely.
one fumble in the game, and that was it. No interceptions, no turnovers on downs. Nick Arbuckle threw an interception in this game. But I think the important thing for Bo Levi Mitchell, too, is how accurate he was. When we talk
Yes,
about accuracy of the
100%.
quarterback, and especially in the CFL where you get limited opportunities on the field with the 3 downs, every pass matters. So 75%, that is a damn impressive mark for a quarterback, but that
Sure
means
is.
he did not miss that much.
No, he
That's
did.
anything above the 70%, that's the sweet spot.
His longest was 46. That was the most impressive.
Yeah, we're talking about the arm strength. I think it's just weird how, a team that's got great players like Kamar Jordan, Reggie Beggleton,
Come on.
Kadeem Carey.
That's it. It's about time you said his name. 91 yards rushing, probably the best rushing in
Yeah,
the
right
CFL
now
this
he's
week.
probably the best running back in the CFL. In my
Right now, because he's one of the top ones that at least he's healthy.
And all of a sudden, here's Malik Henry, 173 yards. What? Who and what and where did this come from? Like,
77 by Beggleton was expected. Yeah, but Malik Henry has been a marvel. He truly has. You're right.
it just goes to show that Calgary, when you think, oh, they lost quite a few guys, that doesn't matter. They'll figure out a way. And,
Yep.
and this is a guy that's they were clearly trying to work into the lineup more. He played 9 games last year. Didn't really see a lot this year with guys leaving. One guy like Markeith Ambles, you got to find someone to replace him. And here's a guy on his rookie deal, 3rd game into the season, after he put up a combined. All right, trying to do math right now. I'll give you the ballpark around 70 yards. So 65, 70 yards in his combined first 2 games, to then 173 yards. I think Calgary is going to be okay.
Absolutely. And they play such an aggressive, physical brand of football. They had 82 yards in penalties. So when you say they haven't made any mistakes, if there's any mistakes that they made, it's their aggressiveness leaking a little bit and causing some penalties. But they didn't pay the price for those penalties. So they did a great job. Bo Levi Mitchell, this is the second game now that he's looked. The last game, sorry, he looked like he was coming out of that shell, and this week he really did. He made a couple of really great passes, and it's amazing. You only have to make a couple, David, to make a difference.
No, like seriously, like that's what a good quarterback does, right? He doesn't now Bolivia Mitchell will always try to make those big plays. He was always trying to go for them. Now as he's matured a bit more and realizing I'm not physically able to do it as much, I got to pick my spots and I got to find the right time to do it. And he's doing that exactly that right now.
Yeah, good for him. Happy for him. He's one of the talents we need in the Canadian Football League to show off this game. It's a great game, and he's a great quarterback, and I think he's reacquired his star status, and we saw Nick Arbuckle in the first half. Show us that he's more than capable to take on that star status. I mean, again, I repeat, I'm not poo-pooing the fact that we have starters, but it's great if we could have some quarterbacks that really make some big plays like we saw in this game. The game will be in good hands.
Yeah, no, and you need that. How are you gonna find how can you grow the game? How can you make the game exciting without having guys who can make the big plays?
Yeah. If you watch this game, you know how good it was. If you were an Elks fan, maybe not so good, but I think there was hope there for Elks fans, especially after the past couple of weeks. Both these teams really look good. Calgary won uh, by making some great plays. They win 30-23 at home again against the Elks. Great game. I enjoyed it. It was fun to watch. The game that wasn't fun to watch, and it went into the wee hours of the morning, Toronto time, 1 a.m. The BC Lions throttled the Toronto Argonauts 44-3. That score was not. It was indicative of the game. It is what the Argo game looked like. It was. It started with what, to me, I don't know. A lot of people said that goal line stand made a difference in this game. I guess because of the score at the time, I can't disagree. But that was more, to me, less about it making a change in the game. I think it was a hint of what was to come. We saw a BC Lion team that was ready, and
Mm-hmm.
the Argos just weren't ready to play the kind of game they needed to play against the new sensation in the Canadian Football League in Nathan Rourke.
We saw a BC Lions team that right away won the toss. Usually they defer. Usually they defer and say, you know what? We think our defense needs to set the tone. What do they do this time? Nope. We're going to take the ball and we're going to score.
The offense is going to set the tone.
Right. And I think that's what happened right there, right? They score right away, confidence sky high. All right, defense, let's see what you guys can do. Argos are like, we can push back, and it looked like they were going to do that. And then they don't get it into the end zone, and if you're the BC team, you're just like, all right, offense, we got your backs. Defensively, we'll match you. And yeah, I think it did set the tone. I think from the Argos standpoint, especially on the goal line there, what they showed BC was that, all right, we can get it down the field, but we can't put it into the end zone. There was bad execution on blocks. They just were not aggressive enough to push the line. And there were just so many things that BC was just happy to take advantage of the Argos struggles in an area that, if you talk to a lot of people who cover the team, say this is nothing new. It's just now being compounded in moments like these, and it's got to be fixed. Otherwise, you're going to keep having results like this, unfortunately.
Well, unfortunately, a lot of Argo fans, their hair was on fire watching this game. And we talk about the running game, and James Butler has been a phenomenal addition to the BC Lions. Incredible, 4 touchdowns in one game. What else can you say? But the star running back in this game was not James Butler. It was David Mackey, 90 yards. David, 90 yards on 16 carries.
I will say this. It was good. It was good that, first off, they didn't have another tailback, and he's
Nope.
not really a tailback. So they had to go with him when Butler went down. My thing was a lot of those yards came in the fourth quarter where Nathan Rourke had done everything.
Yeah.
He set the table and he says, all right, you can finish this off. And that's what happened. Nathan Rourke showed the rest of the league that he's not only a good a good Canadian quarterback, but he is a good CFL quarterback.
I think he's just a great quarterback.
Yeah.
I have concerns that he could be good enough to attract some attention in the NFL.
And you know what?
I really believe that.
Selfishly, we'd want him to stay,
Yeah, and
but
I voiced the opinion we've got to figure out a way how to keep him here and find other great Canadian quarterbacks like him who understand the game and see this is why I love him so much is that he's a Canadian quarterback. Yes, he went to the U.S. college, but he played in Burlington and in high school and played Canadian football. He understands it. He's 24 and he already understands the game. What we hope for with quarterbacks that come from the U.S. is that by the time they're 29 or 30, they've got the game figured out. That's why to me it's important that we have Canadian quarterbacks because they can be successful early because they understand the game to begin with.
Mhm. Well, it's funny because how many times have we seen a team get a young quarterback? First off, this was drafted. So a lot of the other quarterbacks you see teams bringing, they're signing them. They groom them for 2 to 3 years,
Absolutely.
usually. And then they say, all right, now's your chance. It's not what BC did. BC had him for a year under
Mm-hmm.
Michael Riley, sorry. And then Michael Riley retired. They had every thought of they could have just gone another veteran quarterback. There were veteran quarterbacks out there to be had. They said,
Well,
nope.
they did pick up Pipkin, but that was more okay. He's available.
Yeah. They could have gone a guy. They could have tried to get a Trevor Harris. Nick Arbuckle was certainly available. They said,
Yeah,
nope.
when we talked to him,
Yeah.
David, when we talked to the management team, they said, "No, we're happy with the 2 guys we got. We're gonna
They
go with
were, to think they were happy going with an unproven young quarterback in a market that needed success. And look what happens.
And they were forthright about it, David. It wasn't, I was amazed because when they said it, when Campbell said it to us in that presser,
Mhm.
there was no hesitation in his voice. There was no insincerity in his voice. He seriously said, "We're going with this guy." And when we kind of gave him the old, as a group, gave him the, "Are you sure?" He sort of not chuckled, but he gave a reaction to say, "You guys have no idea what you're in for," and he was right.
And on top, yeah, no, and know what? Having Nathan work, I know we're short on time right now. What Nathan work provides as a young quarterback, the financial flexibility to
That they
have
have this
Brian
year.
Burnham, Lucky Whitehead, Dominique Grimes, a good offensive line, having that young quarterback. If they go out and try to sign a veteran quarterback who commands more money because of his experience, they couldn't have the same team. They couldn't. It wouldn't be possible because of the salary cap. And that's where I
Absolutely.
think they BC figured that out. They figured
Yeah.
out a formula that I think the rest of the CFL looks at and says, okay, maybe we were a little bit wrong on this.
Yeah, every team passed on him.
Every team.
Even BC.
True.
BC passed on him too.
They were probably just like, oh, please let them get to the next round. Please let them get to the next round. They did
Well,
hope and prayer and jump and jab, and it worked out for them.
it totally did. And before we go, Bethel Thompson looks like he has the weight of the world on him. He looks like he really, I think he's hearing the ghosts. A lot of people have been hard on him. I'm talking about Argo fans who just don't feel he's the guy that can do it. I think he is a guy who can do it. Right now, mentally, he's in not a very good place. And we talked off the air after the game, and I really wish that they could, sit him down for a game just to chill out. But Chad Kelly is not. He's not Nathan Rourke. He doesn't understand the Canadian Football League, and this is to my point why Nathan Rourke is so great and why a Canadian quarterback has an advantage if they can get one that has some history and some practice in being a pro. It's going to be hard for them to go to Chad Kelly. So the Argos are in a little bit of a jam. We'll see what happens. They get another bye week, so that gives them another opportunity to think things over, if you will.
Yeah, no, that's I think the defense wasn't great for the Argos, but the quarterback position I think will be the bigger thing to look at because they don't have another answer there. So there has to be right now it has to be Cloud Bethel Thompson.
Yep.
And for him to lose to a young quarterback like Nathan Rourke, it doesn't look good on him, unfortunately.
Nope. We're going to have to leave it there, David. Thank you for doing this. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching CFL Talk, airing live Mondays at 9 p.m. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Network. For CFL Talk news, entertainment, and sports programming we offer, please check out spanglishworld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for watching, everybody. Until next time.